amazing. No, so with your first, I'm going to go back because I want to see, I want to add this. You were a retail store manager.
Yes. Look at your mouth.
Where were you a retail store manager?
So I started working retail at Wet Seal. I don't know if you remember Wet
Yes,
Seal.
I worked at Wet Seal.
Yes, okay, I worked at Wet Seal. I started there when I was like straight out of high school, and then grew within the company, became a store manager, and then my career kind of just, retail, it's a high turnover rate. You get recruited. So I actually started working at Tilly's.
Okay.
So that's where basically the Viva La Bonita ideas basically was born, because at Tilly's they house a bunch of those like surf and skate brands, and all those brands have big communities, right? And they have like a culture to them. So I basically learned a lot from all these brands, and I was like, I want to start something of my own. So let me just try, right? Like, it was a passion project. It was like a little hobby that I would do, right, on my days off or nights off of work. But yeah, I mean, I was doing Viva La Bonita and being a store manager basically at the same time for a good 5 years, where it was like a hustle. Like, okay, start the Instagram, start creating community on the Instagram. Like, that was at the time where hashtags were really big. So I was like, okay, hashtag Viva La Bonita. And to add a little bit to anybody who doesn't know about the brand, Viva La Bonita was called something else. It was called Culture LA in the beginning.
Okay.
Because I thought that I was just going to amplify being from LA, because at the time I was like, I can't really talk about the Valley. I don't know. It was something that I think I was not necessarily scared of. It was just like, well, we're LA County, so let's talk about LA because that's what everyone's talking about, right? So I thought that I had to ride something someone else's wave to feel confident in what I was doing, right? So we called it Culture LA, and then I was like, this is not authentic to me. All my friends are from the Valley, all the girls that I'm shooting with are from the Valley. Let's rebrand, right? Mm-hmm. So we were always making clothes though that said Bonita. It was just Bonita from Culture LA. So again, tapping into what I learned at retail, I was like, what is the feeling that I'm trying to create from this brand? Mm-hmm. So after a lot of back and forth, I was like, well, Bonita is not just about how you look, it's about how you feel on the inside. It's about who you are as a person. That's what makes you beautiful. And we think that should live on forever, after generation and after generation. So we came up with the name Viva La Bonita, and we changed the Instagram. It was so scary. I mean, rebranding, I think, for anyone, right? You feel like you have to start from scratch. Yeah. And it could be a really scary feeling, but I'm glad we did it, because once we started hashtag Viva La Bonita, and we changed our Instagram name, and we figured out our story, and we were talking about the Valley, it caught the attention of people. And that was a really big learning lesson to me, where it was like, well, just because you don't see it being done or it being talked about doesn't mean that it's not important.
Yes.
Right?
And that, brings me back to the delusion that you probably we always talk about delusion, the manifesting, the thinking, the brainstorming. You're in a store. I remember being in that same situation of being in a store, dreaming bigger, I cannot wait to get out of here because I have these big dreams, and believing so much in this delusion. And even if you didn't see it out there, mm-hmm. nobody believed her, it's hey, it hasn't been done. For you, seeing that the vision back then, and now seeing the evolution of where you are now you're in your office, you're being carried in an actual bigger store. It's crazy to see that full circle. What is your advice to other people that are just in their delusion, full on, other Latinas, Chicanas from the Valley, or just in LA or anywhere in general, who are just I strongly believe in this, but it's not out there?
Yeah, my advice, it's very simple. It's get out of your head and don't worry about what people are going to say. Growing up, I was raised by my grandparents, and for my grandma, I love that woman, but everything was always ¿qué va a pensar la gente? ¿Qué va a pensar la gente? Si haces eso, ¿qué va a pensar la gente? And I feel subconsciously that stuck in my head until I had to be it doesn't matter. I had to get out of my head. I had to literally, like, basically tell myself, like, if you really want to change your life, you're gonna have to completely change your life and do, basically handle everything that comes with that decision.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid, because like I said earlier, just because it's not being done doesn't mean that it's not gonna work. And also, if you're going into a space where you see, you know, people doing variations or a version of what you want to do, it also doesn't mean that there's no space for you. Everybody has a story to tell, everybody has a voice, and there's space for everyone's dreams to come true. You just have to get out of your head.
Absolutely. And you brought up a good point of, like, even within our own families y comunidad, you think, like, okay, yeah, they're gonna root for me, even though they root for you in a lot of ways, but they're also, I think it's, like, very protective, you know, of, like, or passing on their own, like, projections of their own trauma, of the things, the generational thing. Do you think your brand was a way of you kind of breaking through that generational trauma of just, like, pushing through, like, yeah, my abuelita, I get it, but this is where I'm at?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, and it's something that I still put into perspective to this day, is that your family and your friends are not your target audience. And I've heard that from a lot of influencers. I've heard that from a lot of entrepreneurs, right? Where they tell you, well, are you marketing to your family? Like, is your family going to be, like, your number one customer? Probably not. Are your homies, like, your close-knit circle, like, yeah, they'll support you, but you're trying to tap into a community. You're trying to, you know, you have a big picture vision. And I really had to basically get out of that, where I was like, well, I really don't care, like, what my tia thinks about my shirt that says Chigona, because there's 50 other girls who are like, hell yeah, I am a Chigona. And one of the cool things that we did with Viva La Bonita is we basically took all these words that are, you know, that exist within our community, and we just created our own version of what that means to us. What's the spirit of Chigona? What's the spirit of La Jefa? You know, does Bonita mean to us? And I think that was a really good way of me, I guess, really internally talking to myself, right? Like, it doesn't matter, like, what this inner circle, if they don't get it, they don't get it. But like I said, there's a community of girls who are like, hell yeah, like, that hit, like, that connected. I love that. And I always go back to that feeling. I always go back to that lesson, even to this day when we're creating something new. I still get scared. I still get in my head, and I'm like, damn, I don't know. Like, I don't know if we should do this. And the minute we talk about it on our social channels, you know, we show it to our customers, whether we're at an event or they just see it online, and you just see how it connected with a part of the community. I mean, that's a win. Like, it doesn't mean that every single one of my followers is gonna buy this shirt, but a good amount of people bought it, you know. And I think that's kind of like a learning lesson in life, right? Like, not everybody's gonna agree with you 24/7, but that doesn't mean that it's wrong.
Yeah. Not everyone's, like, you know, deserves that energy or gets that energy, and not everybody's gonna like everything, right? Yeah. And it's like, you're not making, one of the biggest things too as an entrepreneur that I'm learning is that you have to build that community where you are, and you'll see it take off. And you built it within the valley. Like, you really started pivoting more towards the valley, and, you know, putting the spotlight on Valley girls, really, and a different type of Valley girl. I think we've always had that whole stereotype of Valley girl, but you brought in la cultura to the valley, the cultura, like, you put it in the forefront, right? And you have now spread it out into, like, nationwide, putting the valley on the map. How does that feel for you to see it at Nordstrom's on the East Coast, or Nordstrom, or indeed, like, you know, you're seeing it in these stores, these campaigns, having Valley girls, like, true, authentic Valley girls that we always, like, scream, we're the Valley girls, on these campaigns?
It feels really, really good to see where we took Viva La Bonita, because yes, I am a Valley girl. Yes, I am from this particular part, right, of this world. But to see the brand connect with so many, like, women within the Latina community, it all ties back to living in our truth and being our authentic self. And when I started to come from an authentic space and I started to basically create with intention and speak with intention and kind of letting go of that fear, I feel like so many women were like, that's dope. Like, she's confident to be like in her shoes. She's putting on, you know, the valley where she's from. I respect that because I'm proud of where I'm from. I'm proud of this town that I'm from in Nebraska, in Minnesota. And I think that energy, right? That stays in our brand. It stays in our designs, in our social media, the way that we communicate to people, like on our Instagram or on our TikToks. And when people receive their packaging, like the branding, everything is very authentic to who Bonita is. And I think just to see how, you know, big brands recognized smaller brands like us, I think was such a great feeling, because to me, it was less about me. Like, I had my moment where I was like, hell yeah, we did that. I did that. I'm so proud of us. I'm so proud of me. But ultimately, what I'm really proud of is that it just shows how powerful a small business can be, how powerful your idea can be, whether it is you starting a business or you just have this idea of, you know, wanting to do something. It holds so much power because it's yours. And to me, like, just talking about it from a small business perspective, I think I would hope that people would see, like, damn, if Viva La Bonita took it to this level, I could do that too.
Yeah.
And if at least one person feels that way, and, you know, our brand influences their life and can change their life, to me, that's like one of the greatest wins.
Oh, I love that. And that's where it counts, right?
Yeah,
You're seeing the ripple effect of what Viva La Bonita represents, not just for you, but for everybody. It's touched them in different ways, you know, probably when they need it the most. So I resonate with that too, because I mean, Viva La Bonita, like, I grew up in retail, working in retail since I was 16, but it was one of my first stores. So to see Brown Girls, to see Viva La Bonita, to see these words on shirts that we normally didn't get to see them unless you were in the hood, and you see them in mainstream areas and all. It's just like, oh, we're feel seen, even if it's just the words, and then you see the models wearing them and you're like, wait, that looks like my prima, my tia, my friend from high school, you know. So thank you for bringing that into the forefront and really starting that ripple effect, because I do feel like you were one of the pioneers of small business, Latina small businesses. I know that we saw a rise of it in during the pandemic, but you have been doing that. Do you ever come into that phase of, and because we always try to humble ourselves, but do you ever be like, yeah, I'm that bitch, I started it, like I started that? I
definitely will I will definitely channel that energy where I'm like, hell yeah, girl, you did that. I think for me, you know, I've had a handful of small business owners that started during the pandemic who, you know, basically gave me my flowers, which I appreciate and I respect so much, where they were like, hey, I've been a fan of your brand for so long. It inspired me to start my brand. Like, all your motivational posts that you did, you know, all those emails you sent out, it really helped me get over my fear. I just want to let you know that you inspired me to start my brand. And I love that. When I see, you know, our quotes go viral, I mean, it makes me feel really good, because I'm like, those are my words. You know, and everything, I think everything comes with its pros and its cons, but we'll only focus on the pros. And I think that the pros is that there is so many women, so many moms, even just like girls who are fresh out of college, who Viva La Bonita really impacted them in some way. And for that, I'm eternally grateful.
Yeah. And you make it look so effortless. Like, you brought in the baby, you're a mom, you're running around. I'm sure it's not.
It's hard.
There's a lot of... So let's talk about it, because I feel like, do you think that especially as a woman of color, especially as a Latina, as a mother, do you feel like the challenges came a little harder and differently? The lessons hit harder?
For sure. I think when I became a mom, I had to really basically learn and continue to tell myself that kids don't kill your dreams. And I always tell this to moms that I meet. I've been in a lot of mom circles and a lot of panels, you know, that revolve around motherhood, and that's always like my thing, where it's like, kids do not kill your dreams. It's a little bit harder, of course. There's a little bit more sacrifices to be made, but it's not impossible to continue to follow your dreams because you have kids. It's just a whole different ball game, right? And I feel like you're being called to the plate, and for a reason. So just own it and do it, but it's going to come with its challenges. And I feel like parenthood is not a one size fits all. So if you're seeing your peers with kids accomplish things at a different pace than you, or they're doing things differently, that doesn't mean that you're doing it right. That doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. Everyone's just parenting their own way and doing what works for them. And as far as like, you know, being a woman of color and having, you know, if you really get to know like my backstory, having like all odds against me at some point through my life, to me, I also learned that opinions of other people also are not going to kill my dreams. So just because you have something to say about what I want to do, that's cool. That's your opinion. I respect it, but this is what I'm going to do with my life. So it's just a lot of internal like self-talk that I've had to do. And that's basically like my biggest advice to someone is really just be mindful of how you speak to yourself, because I think that matters above anything in this world, is how you think about yourself and how you talk to yourself.
Absolutely. You show it in the words that you put out there. It's like kind of a reflection of where you're at.
Yeah.
And it touches so many women too. I'm sure that they're in their darkness or feeling like, oh, I can't do this, or I'm in fear of doing something that they want to believe in so much, especially because we do come from a cultura that kind of sometimes shames us for being a mom and then starting a business, you know? How did that happen? Like, did you have that kind of twitch of like, no, I'm going to continue with my business. I don't need to just be, there's not one mold of being a motherhood.
Right. Yeah. I mean, one of the craziest things, and it might be like controversial, but it's the truth. I think that I've probably gotten the most judgment within my own community versus the outside, right? And sometimes I know it comes from a good place. I know, you know, people say, oh, it's just tough love. I'm just trying to like, you know, call you out and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I think for me, I really had to, once again, not take it personal. And because I know that I've just, through books that I've read and even just, you know, talking to colleagues and friends, I learned about projection and how people will always project whatever they're going through on you, whether they realize they're doing it or not. And I have some homies that are in the close circle who, you know, always kind of questioned what it is that we were doing and didn't really see the longevity, didn't really see the big picture vision, right? And I had to also learn that my big picture vision, and this is also to anyone listening, your big picture vision is your vision. You can't expect everybody to see things the way that you see it, to understand your talk. But I think for me, it was just, I had to accept that my biggest critics were going to be people from my own community, but to not take it personal. Because if I take everything personal and everything to heart and listen to what everybody has to say about what I did wrong, I honestly would not be here. I wouldn't have made it past the first month of me, you know, mapping out my plan. So sometimes you just gotta like turn the noise off. You gotta like lay low for a bit, work on your dreams, and the people who support you and I think who function on the same wavelength as you, you're gonna find them, they're gonna find you, and you're just gonna learn that all is well. And sometimes you just gotta step out of this bubble that we're in.
Yeah, and tunnel vision. It's like focus on the goals, on the end goal. You see the vision. If nobody else really sees it, it's okay. You see it.
Yeah.
And you, again, attracted so many people in this community. One of the things I love about your brand that I was looking back on, actually, Jasmine Alvarado, who's from the Valley, just posted, like, I work with it.
Yeah.
You connect with so many creators, musicians. You had Leti Peniche, one of our own Chicanos, who I just paid tribute to her, too.
We went to high school together.
Yeah. I grew up with her. So she was the only place I was.
She's amazing.
I was only allowed to sleep over somebody's house, and that was her house.
Oh my gosh.
We grew up together.
Love that.
But she, like, I see, you have Belle Wonder, you had all of these, like, amazing creators and Latinas and Chicanas on, like, collaborating with you. And then you building that community even with other I see you have some amazing models, and I love that you kind of branch out into our own community and build that out. Was that like the main vision when you came about Viva La Bonita, like, oh, I want to reach out to this creator, I actually admire her music, or I went to school with her, I'm gonna like talk to her? Is that something that you went about it, or like how did you think of that? Like,
I think that those collaborations just happened because of the community that we had built.
Got it.
So I have always been very focused on the voice of the brand. How does the brand make you feel? It's not, yes, we are, a Latina brand, but we're not creating a Latina aesthetic or a look, right? To me, it's more about how do you feel? What's the spirit? What's the energy you want to put out? And that's why if we were to be able to visually just put like the Viva La Bonita community in front of you, you're going to see how different like it looks and where all these girls are coming from. And I think once we got that story down correct and we were consistent in our storytelling, then I was able to collaborate with these creators, and it just made sense because like when I would connect with them, whether I knew them or not, it was like, it makes sense why we're coming together because you think the same way. You have basically the same energy. You believe in the art of not caring. Like, I don't care what you think of me. Like, this is my passion. This is what I'm doing. So I think for us, it was, we built that community first, and then these beautiful collaborations just happened. And I think that the reason why these collaborations are I know why they're so successful is because, once again, it's coming from an authentic space. Yeah. And when you talk to these girls, we speak the same language. We may not walk the same walk because they're on their own journey, but that language, it's the same.
Yeah. And we talked about like the narratives within our own community that were harmful, but how have the good narratives have influenced you? Like the familias, if I know you have your grandmother is a big influence, even though she was like, I don't know, mija. Yeah. But she also, you put her in campaigns too. You've had such a big influence. You tell a lot of stories behind that. Can you tell me a little bit about your influence, not just within your family, but even within the community of the San Fernando Valley?
Yeah, so my family has influenced the brand in so many ways. The biggest one that I could basically, I guess have you put a visual to is our Dream Big Mija collection that we have within the brand, and that it has connected with so many people. The word mija is just something that I hear 24/7 to this day. But growing up, everybody in my family, that's how we spoke to each other. Mija, mijo. And I think within my experience with my family, at the end of the day, even with all the judgment, right? All the judgment, all the discipline too, right? Like there's a fine line between like your family, like, judging or talking mess to you, or they're disciplining you, right? Yeah. Within all that discipline, all that talk, at the end of the day, I know that my family just wanted what was best for me, right? So I think for me, I always just kind of go back to my grandfather and him really just encouraging me to be fearless. Like I remember growing up and I would be I have pictures of myself when I was like 1 or 2 years old doing cement work with my grandpa in the backyard. And like I would look at those pictures and I talked to like my tias about it, and they're like, oh, your grandma was so pissed off because you're in a dress and like you're in a bow and like you're getting dirty, but like your grandpa was like, you want to do this? Come try it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's always been engraved in me, where if I have an interest in something and I feel really good about something, I'm not afraid to like go up to it. I'm not afraid to pursue the dream. I'm not afraid to, think on this idea a little bit more and turn it into something, because for me, I've just always been taught to just dream big. Yeah. Dream big, mija. Yeah. And that's kind of like where it came. And I think, my grandmother still to this day, I think, does not really understand what I do. She just knows that I have a business, right? But she would always tell me, I don't know what it is that you're doing, but I support you and I'm going to pray for you and I wish you well. And I think for me, that's all I needed to hear growing up from her. And, you know, again, her voice and just how I translated things, right, coming from my grandmother and my tia and my grandpa, those have all translated into, like, these quotes.
Oh, I love that. And, you know, that's all we ask for. It's like, you might not get it. You might not, like, support it 100%. But
eventually they'll come around, too. That's one thing that I've learned, too. Eventually they come around. And in the beginning it might be tough, but backtracking to the beginning of the conversation, do not let it distract you. Yeah. The opinions of others don't matter. Yes, even if it's opinions from your family, it doesn't matter. Eventually everybody just comes around and they're like, that's cool. I'm proud of you.
Yeah. Has there been moments in your career where you're like, because, like, oh, I've made it. That's what, like, you know, or I've pivot forward. Is there a moment in that where your family kind of validated that, where you're like, oh yeah, this was really good?
I think my family knew that I was onto something when I didn't go back to work for my maternity leave with my first son. They were kind of like, oh, so this is real. Like, you're doing it. And mind you, the beginning of us making and selling clothes, I was basically producing the garments myself. I would go to downtown, buy like a run of blank t-shirts. I had a vinyl machine at home. I had a heat press that I invested in with one of my paychecks, and everything was being produced in my grandma's living room. So I think they would see, like, okay, she sold a shirt this week, you know, oh, the postman picked up a few packages today. I would tell my grandma, like, hey, you know, leave these packages outside. I got to go to work, but they need to leave today, right? So they saw the evolution of Viva La Bonita at its very humble beginnings, but it wasn't until, like, 2017 where that was the rise of, like, these online Latina publications where they were just creating content right within the Latina community. And I remember specifically it was a platform called Viva La, which is interesting because it was like Viva La Bonita, and then their platform was called Viva La, and they would highlight Latina women, and they did an article on us. And I think that whatever operation they had going on, they had a whole platform and community of Latina girls who, when they rolled out that article in 2017, these girls were on it. They were like, wait, what is this brand? I love it. Our Instagram started organically growing. The few shirts that I had on there were selling, like, and, you know, I wasn't getting like hundreds of orders a day, but it gradually was picking up, right? And I just remember having a conversation with my grandma where I was like, I'm not gonna go back to work, but I'm not gonna need you. Like, I'm not depending on the family, like, financially. I'm not asking for a handout. I'm actually just letting you guys know that I don't need to go back to work because this is actually working. It's not gonna buy me a house, but it's enough to sustain myself and most importantly my son. It's enough to sustain my son, but I really need to catch this wave. And to me, as small as that win was, I know that was my I made it moment, because I was able to quit my job, and I had a pretty good job. I mean, working a store manager position, it's stable, it's, you know, financially stable. You get a, you know, it's a good position to be in. But I was like, no, this is way more important than going back to work. And to me, that's my I made it moment in many ways, not just on the business side, but I think that was the first time that I fully accepted my potential, and I was not afraid to, like, meet that next version of me.
I love that. I accepted my potential.
Yeah.
Like, that is so huge, because a lot of Latinas struggle with accepting not only their full on, you know, just identity of who they are and their power and everything, but just even the potential of they being afraid to fail or taking that risk, you know. You took that risk of not going back to work, starting a brand that wasn't even out there.
Yeah.
What is your message for the future generations? Because I think for me, it's like, that's why I'm bringing this series, is for people to go back and be like, oh my God, that's where, you know, God knows where Rachel's gonna be in a few years, but that's a little, we connected with her in the middle of this journey, right? And we saw her evolution, we saw this, and what is your, there's so many changes that are going to happen in the next, obviously after even this year and along with elections and everything. What is your message to those future generations that are learning to accept their potential?
My advice for the future generation is to not be afraid to walk in your truth and live in your truth and speak from your truth, because I think that when you start to literally exist in your truth and who you are as a person, your world continues to unfold, and it's going to unfold in positive but challenging basically moments. But I think that those challenging moments that you're about to face, as long as you know who you are and you're just proud of yourself for just even existing and making it this far, like however old you are today, for making it this far, your life can be beautiful. And I think that I never like to tell somebody like too much one-sided advice, because where I was at 2017 to where I'm at now is a completely different. I've gone through like 5 different versions of myself.
I'm sure.
And like the brand, I think, has done so many new things. So it all goes back to we're living in our truth, we're walking in our authenticity, and you're here. Be proud of yourself. You belong here. There's space for you. Just block out the hate and focus on what your big picture vision is.
I love that. What would you tell Rachel from 2017? Like, what would you go back and tell her?
I would tell her to not hold on to what you didn't get, because what is waiting for you in 3 years is way better than what you wanted. And I would even tell that to all the past versions of myself. That loss, let it go. Because if you are able to see yourself in the future, what you think you want is not what you really want. And if it is taken away from you, whether you're a religious person or not, but if it was taken away from you, it's the universe taking it away from you for a reason.
Yeah.
So just be patient and just trust that the universe always has your back.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know my mom has this saying, que no hay mal que bien no venga. That you just gotta keep positive. You gotta stay focused on what you're doing and know that the universe has your back. Is there a saying that you say or that your grandma passed on to you, or anybody significant in your life that you're like, oh yeah, that's the dicho?
I don't think I have a specific dicho. I don't want to sit here and lie. I think for me, it's just more of my internal voice. I'm really proud of all the, self-work and all the healing that I've done in the last 10 years, honestly, with myself, because I have gotten to a place in my life where I have learned to get myself out of a dark place. And I think that hopefully this inspires, a listener who maybe doesn't have support at home and doesn't have like that village, right? It doesn't matter. It's you. It's your self-talk. It's your internal voice that's actually going to be the one to really pull you all the way out. So for me, it's me. I have bad days, and I just have to kind of just tell myself, like, it's not a bad life. It was just a bad day, girl. Like, it's going to be fine tomorrow. So I've also just learned to not react emotionally. I process my emotions. I'll cry about it. Like, I'm the type of person that I'm like, look, I know I'm going to figure it out, but I just need to be really dramatic right now, and I need to cry. I need to throw a fit, but I'm going to figure it out tomorrow. So we'll just check in tomorrow. And that's just the person that I've become. And again, it's all internal.
Yeah. Somos lloronas. I'm a llorona for sure. Yeah. And then I'll be like, all right, I'm over it. I just needed that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. Where can the listeners find you? Where can they, get to know your brand, get to know your story a little bit more? And, maybe what's to expect also, too, from Viva La Bonita? Is there anything that we are waiting for?
Yeah, so you can find us on Instagram and TikTok, Viva La Bonita. And then we have a website, vivalabonita.com. We also have an app that you can download, which is really fun because we send out daily, like, motivational text messages. Our app is called Viva La Bonita. And I think what you can expect from us is you know, as I grow, the brand grows. As the community grows, the brand grows. And a lot of us are entering motherhood. A lot of us are entering health and wellness. A lot of us are graduating, getting our masters. So you're going to see a lot of new, basically, eras or new voices, right, that are going to be popping up in the brand. And I think Viva La Bonita is entering a new era. We're going to be bringing you a little bit more elevated apparel, more intentful content, and yeah, you'll just have to wait and see. There's a lot of things cooking up in the background, but we're excited to introduce this new version of the brand to you.
Oh, I'm excited. Well, thank you guys for listening. This is Chicana in the City, repping and reporting in the San Fernando Valley, and I'm your host, Natalie Garcia, and I'm here with Rachel from Viva La Bonita. All right, thank you guys.
Bye.